play a mom who's trapped in a safe room for many hours, well over a day, with my children and family. And, the idea, the concept of being in that position, not knowing, no information, terrified, it's extremely powerful, and it does make you think, what would you do?
Hello, my name is Anne McElhenney.
And I'm Phelim McAleer.
And welcome to the Anne and Phelim Scoop, all the way in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. And I think the most important thing for everyone to know is, as you can see, we have actually survived the polar vortex.
Snowmageddon.
The polar vortex of 2026, otherwise known back in the oldie days when we were young as winter.
Yes.
So yes, we did. We survived. We came on a train. All very dramatic.
Well, I have to, yes, it should be all about us, though, this, I think, all about how the victims that we are. Look how brave we were. Look at this list of cancelled trains and our little train there. Look at that. We were so brave. Last train out of New York.
Yes. And the train left really late, then it stopped and started a bit, and then we eventually got as far as Washington, D.C., and we thought, this is great. Only then to hear this announcement that basically said, oh, we have to defrost the train lines, or we have to do some kind of defrosting type of activity. So then we sat on the train for over an hour. But actually then we were greeted this morning by a nice email from Amtrak saying, sorry about all that mess yesterday. Here's all your money back, which I have to say, pretty impressed with that.
Pretty impressed. I think a 3-hour journey ended up taking 6 hours.
Yes.
I have to say there was a very much an element of being in an American movie, going to Thanksgiving, Steve, what was it, planes, trains and automobiles?
Something like that, yes.
Everything's cancelled. Funny, they talk about the most difficult part of business, delivery and business is the last mile. Certainly the most difficult part of our journey was the first mile and the last mile. Because
that's true.
There was so much snow in New York. I felt there wasn't that much, but it was coming down. It was quite difficult getting to the train station. Getting on the train was delayed. Then we got on the train, and then the last
by the
mile.
way, yes, we're showing a couple of dramatic photographs of us. I particularly like this particular photograph of my husband looking like a Sherpa, bringing some of the bags. And by the way, just to understand, this was not all the bags, because I have learned something, and here's some wisdom for all of you, because I'm just wise now. The older you get, and the more you travel, the worse you get at packing. And of course, some of you will write and say that that's absolutely not true, but I have heard it from other people, so I'm actually feeling kind of fairly smug about that.
Yeah.
I suppose the advantage of overpacking is that you definitely have clothes for every occasion. But listen, the really important thing is that today, our play will take to the stage at the Kennedy Center, at the Trump Kennedy Center tonight. And we are super, super excited about that.
That's Wednesday, the 28th of January. If you're watching this on Thursday, you missed it. But but if you did miss it, we have a task for you, as in helping us keep going, helping us pay for taking it to the Kennedy Center. It's very expensive. We had to get a cast of 14, and the director and producers, fly them in. The Kennedy Center is a costly venue. So please help us keep going. Help us bring this play and our other work to the millions who need to see it and hear it. So please go to unreportedstorysociety.com. We're a 501c3.
All donations are tax deductible. And actually, I think this brings us to the kind of one of the first things we want to talk about is that this cast who will be taking to the stage this evening are absolutely extraordinary, absolutely amazing. They're just an unbelievably talented bunch. A lot of them were at the last performance at Bowden, and I just think it's a real treat, and I'm really happy for the people who will get to see them tonight. But we talked to some of them.
You actually thought, Anne, that Bowden, in some respects, was a much more powerful performance than the Off-Broadway performance, because it's a more pared down staged reading.
It's just an interesting concept. It's funny. It's almost like it sort of seems contradictory. It seems like it wouldn't make sense. It seems like it doesn't make sense that a play with all the action and and props and scenery, etc., all of that kind of thing, that somehow that would be less than just a pared down staged reading with people just reading the words of the people that we interviewed. But I suppose when you think about it, because of the fact of the actual the specific thing about a verbatim play is the words of the actual people, and almost everything else is a distraction. And I
Yeah.
think at Bowden we got this really pure experience, which it registered very much with people. I mean, people were in tears. It was really powerful, I have to say. And no insult to anybody anywhere who was in any of the productions. For me, it was the most powerful production I've seen, and I'm expecting great things tonight.
I'll be very interested. Our friend Steve, who's coming,
Yes,
he has seen it 5 times, I believe,
yes,
in New
yes,
York. I'd be very interested in his opinion tonight,
yes,
actually,
yeah. And
on the
this will be, and Steve, yeah, our super fan Steve, who's just been fantastic. And he actually, this will be his first time seeing, as you said, film. It'll be his first time seeing the verbatim, just the words, just
staged.
the staged reading. That'll be the first time
Yeah.
he'll have seen it, because he saw the full production in New York just 5 times. So I know, Philip, that you spoke to some of the actors at the rehearsals this week in New York. I think this is something that was really great for people to kind of share in this moment just before we have the performance tonight. So tell us about, who did you talk to, Philip?
Well, I spoke to Kirsten Crone, who's playing Hadass Karmi. Hadass was in a bomb shelter for 35 hours, maybe longer, with her family, knowing that at the same time, in all likelihood, her brother Tal was lying dead outside in the streets. In fact, he led the security squad for his kibbutz and was probably one of the first to be murdered. And it's very interesting. Why
Yeah.
was he one of the first to be murdered? They believe that Palestinian workers, people who had been brought in to work in the kibbutz, because a lot of these kibbutzes were very progressive, and I think they just felt if we integrate Palestinians, we give them work, they come out of Gaza with work permits, then that will bring about peace. And unfortunately, what happened was that they were able to tell terrorists, or maybe they were the terrorists themselves, who knew where the
Where everything
armory
was.
was.
Yeah.
And in Israel, it's one of the strange things that I wonder, has this changed? So if you're part of the security squad, you patrolled the kibbutz, and then at night you went to the armory and put your gun back in the locked armory. So when this happened, you had to rush to the armory and get your gun out. And of course, they had snipers all around the armory. So anyone going to get their gun was unfortunately assassinated. Now, Tal was wounded. He was able to warn people
Yes.
that the terrorists were wearing IDF uniforms. So he did probably save a lot of lives by letting people know that. So let's hear what Kirsten says about the power and importance of the October 7 play. Let's play that tape.
I play a mom who's trapped in a safe room throughout that day, and I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to participate in an event that that really shows what happened to the people who were victims of that day, in an unbelievably honest and important way.
And this is her talking about the character she's playing, Hadass Karmi, what it's like to play someone who's real.
The character I'm playing is a mom. I'm a mom. I have 4 of my own children, and I'm trapped in a safe room for many hours, well over a day, with my children and family. And the idea, the concept of being in that position, not knowing, no information, terrified. It's extremely powerful, and it does make you think, what would you do? How would you react? What are you grateful for? How do you want to communicate with people? It really gives you pause.
And then I asked Kirsten about the honor of performing in the Kennedy Center, the Trump Kennedy Center.
I've never actually been in the Kennedy Center, so to be in the Kennedy Center and performing in the Kennedy Center is it's an honor of a lifetime. It's really fantastic.
It's a very interesting thing for American actors, the idea of verbatim theater. It's not as popular in America as it is in the rest of the world, maybe. Certainly the UK, verbatim theatre is a big thing. So I wanted to talk to her about what was it like to be in a verbatim play.
So it's super interesting to sort of toe the line between like a documentary and a written piece. It's a mosaic of people's interviews, so it's a particularly interesting way to express and be somebody's voice that you don't really have to make up too much. The words kind of tell you exactly what they experienced and where they were at the time and what their relationships are with the other people in the play.
And then I spoke to actor Yuval Jonas. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. Yuval Jonas, who plays Asaf Oren. I interviewed Asaf. He's a wonderful person, a gentle, kind, very, very funny person.
Exactly.
Actually.
And we definitely, that's one of the really important parts of the play. It's in something like this, you need humor, and bizarrely, there are moments of humor. And I think audiences, and at every performance I've been to, audiences really appreciate these moments of humor, and
Yes.
they're not manufactured. These are genuine pieces, and he was particularly funny. But yeah, and then you talk to Yuval and talk to him about that.
Yeah, let's hear him talk about how the play, although it's a tragedy, it's not depressing. It has, he actually says, it has action, it has heroics, and as we said, it even has humor. So let's hear him talk about that.
I'm playing Asaf. And why am I here? Well, I'm Israeli, so this is, of course, very close to my heart. And I think also beyond that, probably it strikes people being that this is the subject matter, that it's going to be some depressing play, and of course it is sad and it's a horrible event, but I also actually think that it's full of action and even funny occasionally. And so I just think it's very well edited, the interviews, and so it's just even fun to be a part of it, beyond it, of course, being important and touching.
Asaf is a very interesting guy,
Yes. And actually, it's kind of always strikes me as an interesting thing because, he's a man and whatever, but the way he talks about friendship is quite extraordinary. And obviously, he went through this extraordinary, awful tragedy, this massacre with his friend, and lost friends. So I think that's one of the things that you asked him about, is about the character that he's playing, about this man's amazing understanding and value of friendship.
Yeah.
Let's
So
listen to
hear
that.
Yeah.
It's mainly for me, and I think his story in the play revolves mostly around his friendship with Baal, whom he lost, who died. There's also another friend, Uri, who is alive and going through it with him at the moment, but it's the heart of his plot line is Baal. And so for me, I have very, very close friends, and of course, they're all in Israel, and of course, they're just around, and I lost some people I knew there. And so I can really connect to it being about a specific friend.
And then Yuval, I should say, Yuval, he also acted in the Bowdoin College production. In fact, a lot of the actors were in Bowdoin.
Yes.
Some actually go back to the Off-Broadway run. And here's him talking about how rehearsals can be casual. I don't think he realized, and you get this subtext, people don't realize how powerful a play is. And funny, I remember we had that with the Trans on Trial play in London,
Yes.
where the actors, the rehearsals were sluggish. There was something not there in the rehearsals. But when they got in front of an audience, I remember the director saying, everyone raised their game because they just absorbed the energy of the crowd and realized, oh, this is funny, this is real, this is a great piece. So
yeah, well,
Yuval,
yes, was amazing, and I have such a memory of his performance at Bowdoin. Well, I want to echo what he said to me then, which is we want to keep going, we want to keep performing, we want to bring this play just about everywhere
yeah.
in the world. So it's going to be very special.
Let him talk about the power of performing before a live audience.
Just it also happened last time we performed this at Bowdoin College. We're sort of doing it again and again and again, and it sort of just becomes in a way a muscle memory. And then when it's not you going up now during rehearsal, I'm on my phone playing chess. Don't tell anyone. But then when we're there and you feel and you see the audience and you see the responses on their faces and you hear the vocal, the pain or even the laughing, it sort of really suddenly immediately strikes you, oh, this is important, and it really touches people.
So it's going to be, yeah. So I mean, Yuval and all the actors that we have tonight are just extraordinary. And it's going to be very, very special. There's a couple of very important people coming, tonight. We cannot say in advance who they are for all kinds of reasons, but we'll be able to talk about it next week and bring you footage of those people, and some of them who will be speaking at the performance as well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very special. And thank you for everyone who has supported us. For those of you who have been on the fence about supporting us, please, perhaps maybe the words of those actors is going to inspire you to donate. As we said, we are a 501c3 and all donations are tax deductible. You can donate at unreportedstorysociety.com.
And if you're in the DC area or you know anyone in the DC area, you got to come.
Yes.
There's a bit of snow out there, right? But it hasn't, by the time you're watching this, I assume the weather, we're recording this earlier in the week. The weather forecast is no more snow. So you're about to be used to the snow by now. So come out if you're in the DC area. If you want to buy a ticket, go to October7theplay.com. You can buy your ticket there at the Kennedy Center, October7theplay.com. There are still a few tickets left.
There's a few tickets left, but I think it's interesting just thinking about the play and about the significance of the play and what this is really all about was even brought home even more particularly in the last few days and over the weekend with the very sad news, but also in some ways comforting news for his family. But Ran Gavelli, his body has been recovered from Gaza after 843 days. So this is footage of the soldiers after finding his body and how they reacted to it. And as we're watching that footage, I'm just going to read the words of President Herzog and what he said. Ran Gavelli, our hero, has returned home after 843 days. Ran, a Special Forces police officer, went out to battle heroically in order to save lives on October 7th. Finally, Ran has been returned home to his family in Israel. The entire people of Israel are moved to tears. Our hearts are with his parents, Talik and Itzhak, who fought a noble and heroic battle to bring him home. Thank you to all those involved in the operation to bring Ran home. This was an operation of immeasurable importance in fulfilling the sacred obligation to redeem captives. And I think this is an extraordinary detail that the president mentions. After many difficult years, for the first time since 2014, there are no Israeli civilians held hostage in Gaza. An entire nation prayed and waited for this moment. May Ran's memory be a blessing.
That's very significant. It was a big stick that the Palestinians, that Hamas held over Israel. And it also meant that Hamas terrorists could do what they want because they knew that it's very likely that they would get, they could be sentenced to 40 years in prison for murdering Jews or Israelis. But there was a chance that they would get released early in a hostage swap.
Yes.
One Israeli for 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. That exit is no longer available to them. So this is a big, it's
a big moment.
That blackmail is no longer available. If you are in Hamas and you want to go and do bad things, you may spend decades in prison. There may not be a quick exit. So it's a very significant moment.
And there's just a short video that I want to show at the end of this that we got from the Israeli press office, just about 30 seconds long. People removing the yellow ribbon after all this time of waiting and waiting and waiting for the hostages and the dead to be returned.
So now we have to talk about the death of Alex Pretty. Alex Pretty was killed in Minneapolis last weekend. There are a lot of different versions, not different versions, but different accounts of what happened. And one thing I would say, and I want to talk about this, and you're lucky enough to have in front of you now someone who has been dealing with controversial shootings every year of his journalistic career. I
That's
started
right.
off
Yes.
in journalism in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, where controversial shootings and shootings after tussles with security forces and people getting shot in cars was very, very common. And by the way, they're still trying to sort out the truth. They're still having inquests and inquiries over in Northern Ireland about these incidents. So don't feel as if America is somehow
Unique.
Yes. But so given that experience, this is what I want to say about the shooting of Alex Pretty at the weekend. Believe very little of what you hear. And as we discussed last week, people will not believe their eyes. And they also will try and convince you something is true when it quite clearly is not, according to multiple videos. I call this the stomach ulcer effect, right? And I talked about this last week about the guy in the 80s and 90s who discovered that stomach ulcers were not caused by stress. People were getting their stomachs removed because of the damage stomach ulcers were doing. And he thought maybe it's bacteria. He went and looked at biopsies, and there was the bacteria. He could see it on a microscope. He showed it to other people who had invested a career in treating ulcers that were caused by stress or coffee or alcohol or
And they
whatever
were
it was.
so invested, and they were so invested in the narrative that they'd married themselves to, that they literally couldn't see what was right in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's a brilliant story. I think it's an absolutely brilliant story. It's so instructive. And in this
Yes.
particular case, people really want to see what they want to see. And including, by the way, and I think it's worth mentioning, Phil,
Yeah.
because people are watching a lot of video of people looking at a lot of photographs. There's a lot of AI videos and AI photographs coming
Mhm.
out of what happened in Minneapolis. And obviously, the whole thing is a huge tragedy. It's awful that
Mhm.
this man is dead. It is just terrible that this man is dead. But I think one of the points that we wanted to make that I think is very relevant is that this violence that seems to be happening in this one part of America isn't happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And ICE are operating everywhere. And they're operating particularly in Texas. A huge amount of ICE activity in Texas, and picking up people who are here illegally.
And
And
there's a lot of guns in Texas.
yeah, and there's no violence being breaking out in Texas. So what's the difference between the reaction in Texas and the reaction in Minneapolis, and in other parts of the United States? And I think you'll find it might be connected somehow with the people who run those states and those places.
Well, look, these are sanctuary states and sanctuary cities, and what that means is that if you're a pedophile illegal immigrant and you're about to be released in prison, in every other part of America, you are handed over to ICE before you're released from prison and deported. In Minneapolis and Minnesota and all these other sanctuary states, that information is deliberately kept from ICE, and you're released in secret, in private, because pedophiles have rights too, apparently. So I want to talk about the various accounts coming out. According to Democrats and a lot of the mainstream media and activists, this was a cold-blooded assassination of a nurse. Just out not minding his own business. According to the administration, some people in the administration, he was brandishing a weapon. This is a classic example of F around and find out. Now, he obviously wasn't technically brandishing a weapon, and
And he had every right to bring a weapon with him, by the
yes,
way,
this
because
is
that's
yeah.
So it's
No, this
perfectly
is
lawful.
something very important. It's perfectly lawful to have concealed carry weapons in Minnesota if you have a permit and all that, and he had a permit. So bringing the weapon on the street was perfectly legal. And he didn't technically brandish the weapon either. But I understand what happened was, let's go over what happened. A woman was being obstreperous. He intervened between the woman and ICE. And by the way, he was an ICE watcher. He's part of that, part of a group that were getting dangerously close to armed federal agents. He was an ICE watcher, an ICE spotter. He was involved in that whole movement. He got in between a woman who was getting obstreperous with federal agents. They pushed him away and missed him. He then appeared to get confused and almost seemed to attack the woman. He didn't know where he was. The ICE agents then descended on him to stop the aggression, and they saw a gun. You can hear someone say gun. Then it looks like the agent retrieved the gun and was walking away, and the gun accidentally discharged, or was discharged. Let's say I don't know exactly the circumstances of the discharge, and that then led other ICE officers to believe, when they heard the word gun and a bullet, that they were under fire, and one officer or two officers responded with multiple shots and killed him. Now, that's a series of really, really tragic errors and unfortunate events, and you shouldn't you see, you're allowed to carry a gun, but you're not allowed to carry a gun and interfere, but you're not allowed to interfere in police officer activity. If the police are dealing with a obstreperous woman, you're not allowed to intervene. He should not have intervened. He broke the law there. And you're not allowed to carry a gun and break the law. That actually is brandishing a weapon. I remember, and let's play that tape now, of Julie Sautner during Frack Nation, where she confronts me on the road, drives up to me and starts berating me. And then I'm asking her questions, and she says, "I am armed, I will tell you that," and shows me her concealed carry permit. I have been told by firearms experts that that is technically brandishing a firearm. That I felt I immediately put my hands up, backed away. I
Yes.
feared that she was going to shoot me. And that is, so when showing a concealed carry permit is brandishing a weapon. You're not allowed to brandish a weapon. You're not allowed to point it at someone and make them feel fear, or even produce it to make them feel fear. That's illegal. Unless, of course, you're under a threat.
I am armed, I will tell you that.
You're armed. Well, I'm not getting involved now.
Well, that's good, but I will.
What are you reaching for then? Okay.
I do have a permit to carry a gun. I will,
Right.
I will prove that.
Well,
Okay.
I'm not harassing you in a way. You stopped.
you
You
are
stopped to talk to me.
harassing me.
I was standing here. You stopped to talk to me. That's a.
That's a permit to carry a gun.
You can't break the law with a gun. You're then leaving yourself open to being the victim of a serious incident. So he was. Then they took the gun off, and the discharge was perhaps negligent. Maybe that, we don't know the exact circumstances of
And
that.
this is why there will be a court case, and this is why a jury will get to hear and to see all the evidence.
Yes.
I think what we're all hoping, actually it's not going to happen. It won't happen this time. It didn't happen before, is that people would wait before they rush to
Yeah.
judgment. And unfortunately, we have plenty of people who are saying they know exactly what happened.
Mhm.
And it's very hard to know exactly what happened for now.
Can I
But-
just say that the administration, some of the administration, I think it's Kirsty Nolan, he was brandishing a weapon and all. I mean,
That's not
administration
helpful.
have overreacted here, right? They have put out information that's not correct. However, it's understandable. They have seen what happens when you don't counter the mainstream media and the Democrats and the activists. They were burned by Ferguson. Hands up, don't shoot was the dominant narrative. And they
And
didn't,
everyone reported it, and it
and that
never
was,
happened.
I think Obama was there, and so no official voice came out and said, not only is that wrong, it doesn't make logical sense
Yes.
that a man was sitting on his knees with his hands in the air saying, I got my hands up, don't shoot. And a police officer put 6 bullets in him. It
didn't happen. And it didn't happen. And the grand jury, who had plenty of time to do exactly the thing that we're hoping will happen here, to go through all of the evidence rigorously and ask the question, what exactly happened? When that happened with Ferguson, they were very clear. They were very clear, and it obviously we did the play Ferguson, which tells that story in the words of the people who were actually there and were
Yep.
asked under oath, "What did you see? What could you see? What could you see from the angle?" And it was quite interesting. I mean, part of the whole Ferguson thing that's amazing is people who had previously given statements to the media and said things like, "He shot him. His hands were up. He was pleading for his life." When they were questioned under oath and when they were questioned closely by detectives and investigators, it was like, well, hang on, you were upstairs at that window. From that window, you couldn't have seen him. That the angle is incorrect. You couldn't see. In fact, from that angle, you saw nothing. And the guys had to back down and say, okay, well, I actually didn't see it, but I heard it. A friend of mine said it. He
Yeah.
saw it. And it's like, yeah, then the friend, didn't materialize. And of course, with, multiple witnesses who actually were there, were able to say about Michael Brown that Michael Brown did not have his hands up. He did not say, "Don't shoot." But
let's be clear
that was
also.
so late. But that was so late in the day after that
Mhm.
lie had gone around the world before the truth could get his pants on. And that lie continues, by the way. And you and I will remember, Phil, I'm going to a U2 concert at one point months afterwards. And Bono, from Ireland, the lead singer of the U2, walking on stage on this huge platform stage with his hands up, saying, "Hands up, don't shoot, hands up, don't shoot." And it's amazing. And I think that's kind of the point you're making, that maybe the administration are acting, a little bit hasty because they're trying to get ahead of a narrative
Mhm.
because of what happened with Ferguson, where a
And George
complete
Floyd.
lie, and George Floyd, yeah, where a complete lie got to just got to take hold. And we've seen this so many times, and it's really, really awful. I'm not sure I agree with their tactics. I agree with you that they're trying to get ahead of the narrative, but it's not
Mhm.
it's not good. And people need to calm down and wait. And people need to be really conscious. I've just seen it myself, a few things on AI, things that were created, videos that were created and photographs created by AI that are telling a lie about what happened there. But either
Yeah.
way, it's an incredible tragedy. It's an awful
But,
story.
but let's not forget the mainstream media ran with the hands up, don't shoot, and the
Yes.
mainstream media interviewed people who said, "I saw this from this window," and if they'd gone up the stairs to look out that window, they would have seen that would have been impossible.
No,
But
but
they didn't do
they
that,
didn't wanna do that. No, they didn't wanna do that because you wouldn't wanna get the truth in the way of a great narrative,
and
because they really liked it.
not one of them have apologized. Not one
No.
of them issued a correction.
Yeah.
Not one of them have gone back and said, "Let's look at how we got this so wrong," because it'd be a very interesting media exercise.
And people died because of that. Multiple people died because of that. Billions of dollars worth of damaged properties, lives destroyed, by the way, because of that lie. So that, this is very serious stuff. And it's certainly not helping calm things down in Minneapolis if you've people going forward with these really strong narratives that are untrue and
Yeah.
unfounded before a jury get to decide what happened. Um, Talking of, well, I don't know if this is a proper segue, but I do think maybe, well, when you think about Ferguson, when you think about Minneapolis as well, I do think we are not the same. I mean, a lot of people have made this point on social media, and it's a good point. Charlie Kirk was assassinated, like in front of a load of people, including, his own family were watching, I think, on monitors. Like literally, he was assassinated for talking. And the response to that was, really the response was people prayed. People said they would go to mass. People started going to the church.
No
That
riots.
that was literally the response. There were no riots, not at all, and there was no
No one.
graffiti. There was no one hurt.
No one
Right,
boarded up a shop, by the way.
right.
They're boarding up shops in Minneapolis now. No
Yeah,
one thought to even board up their shop
no.
in any of these blue cities or anywhere.
Yeah. So it's kind of, it's basic. We're not the same. We're not the same. We're not all the same. So on the right and the left, the response to events is definitely different. Um, and that's no more. I mean, one of the worst, most egregious examples of that just happened lately, and this is so egregious and so awful and so ugly and disgusting that I can't even. I will not be repeating, because for those of you who do know this story, I will not be repeating the words verbatim that this woman said. But I will make it very easy for you to find what she said. So a nurse at Baptist Health Boca Raton Regional Hospital has been fired now after posting a viral social media video wishing health. I'm going to put it this way, right? I mean, this is this is a gentle way of putting it. Wishing health complications on
So,
President Donald Trump's press secretary when the woman is
oh,
having her baby. The video is incredibly disturbing. We're not going to show it. We're not going to show the video.
I'm just reading the script. It's
Yes,
it's
I've got the script here.
appalling.
We're not going to read it, right? The nurse, her name is Lexi Lawler, and she was fired from Baptist Health Boca Raton Regional Hospital after sharing a TikTok in which she stated that she wants the 28-year-old Levitt, who is going to have her second baby, to experience severe injury during childbirth. And she is incredibly detailed about what that would entail, that injury would entail. And of course, with her experience, she knows very much what that's about. What I think is, I mean, I found it very disturbing to look at the video. Maybe we'll play the video, if you know what I mean, without the sound. While I'm speaking, people can see her face. But I don't want it. We're not going to play the video because it is odious, but it's really scary. And it's not the first time we've seen this, where where teachers or nurses or people with responsibility for, the general public, by the way. And by the way, the general public is made up of people who are Republicans, people who are Democrats, people, from all kinds of political spectrums. And for someone like this to say that, but what I think is interesting, and I just wanted to finish this point, was so Lexi Lawler now, so she gets fired. She got fired for what she said, which is only right. And I do think people are also calling for her to lose her registration as a nurse, which I would have no issue with, because this is a dangerous person. I mean, I think she is deranged. If you look at the video, by the way, this is not a casually put together video. This is not kind of like, this is actually, she put her makeup on. She organized what she was going to say. It wasn't, and she left it up there. Now it's taken down at this point because she realized the consequences of what she's done. But the idea that somebody like that might be taking care of you, might be taking care of your mother, might be taking care of somebody that you love, who just has a different political outlook, and she has these attitudes, and it's really frightening. I mean, it's really, really frightening. Anyway, she started a GoFundMe, which I think is kind of funny. And the last time I checked, she was looking for 40,000, and she got like four. By the way, I think the fact that she got $4,000 is amazing to me. But the GoFundMe campaign, has amazing language in it that I just think is unacceptable. Lexi Lawler was fired for political speech. She was not. She was not fired for political speech. She was not fired for political.
Yeah.
What she said was not political. She's a liberal woman. I'll go on with what they have on GoFundMe. She's a liberal woman who used her personal social media on her own time to sharply criticize a public figure tied to a cruel and harmful administration. She did not sharply criticize a public figure. She did not. She did not do that. She wished the worst kind of injury to a woman having a baby is what she did. She wished violence, by the way, on somebody who has a different opinion than her.
But I think it's also significant. She put it in the context of her skill.
Yes.
So she is going to be dealing with other people who share similar opinions
To Caroline Levitt.
Yes.
Yes.
So there's a fear that she will not treat properly someone with similar opinions. That takes us far, far away out. It wasn't, even if she was a road sweeper or a PR person or whatever, even if she was someone else or a CEO, I'm not sure it's political speech to wish actual physical harm on someone. But
it's 100% not. This is not. No, political speech is not. I mean, I'm open to being corrected. I do not believe political speech is saying, I hope you die. I don't think that's political speech. You need to die, the worst possible death or any kind of violence of any kind. I mean, she didn't want her to die, but she basically had wanted her to be severely injured, permanently severely injured is what she wanted. Just, and I actually think we should start a section, actually, by the way. I think we should start a feature on our podcast film, We Are Not the Same. Because I actually think it's really an interesting contrast. What happened to Charlie Kirk was it was unbelievable. We were watching it in real time. It was unbelievable to see somebody who just spoke words to be assassinated. And yet the reaction to that, and he represented millions and millions of people's opinion in America. He was very representative of what a lot of people, millions and millions of people believe. And the reaction was prayer. We're not the same. We're not the same. And this woman, maybe but if she's mentally ill, she shouldn't have been in that job in the first place.
That's
so
right.
She's not mentally ill. She said this soberly. and she has her makeup all done very nicely. She has her nice lighting. I mean, we're in rather unsatisfactory lighting situation today.
Yes.
She was not in unsatisfactory lighting. She had almost professional lighting. She had written a script. She had the whole thing sorted out. And losing her job is absolutely legitimate. People cannot feel safe going
Yes.
into a hospital if someone in there wishes them unbelievable injury for just having a different opinion.
Yes. Well, the question is, will they be 100%, 110% looking after my health
Yes.
and safety?
Yes, and your
If
mother and your sister and somebody else that you love, or anyone
Yeah.
belonging to you, or not even belonging to you. You know, the idea that somebody would have this kind of, and as you say, she's wishing something that she particularly knows a lot about. And for those of you who want to read it, obviously we'll have a link to the show notes where
Yes.
you can read and you can see it. But it's like, it is literally, it is too odious for me to even do the blank thing with it,
Yes.
because it's just so awful. Anyway, Phelim, we are coming to the end of this podcast,
Yes.
and this is a very significant day. We have the Kennedy Center tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought a good place to end maybe today, right, Phelim,
Yes.
was with this amazing speech or statement that was made just very recently at the United Nations by Hillel Neurer, who is an international human rights lawyer, and he's an executive director at United Nations Watch. And by the way, if ever there needed to be an organization, I mean, I don't know much about them, but I think United Nations Watch, yeah, they need to be watched. And
Yes.
what he has to say is quite extraordinary. And I think it's a great way for us to maybe end the podcast this week.
Yes. Yeah. Look, it's wrong to call it a genocide in Iran, but it's definitely a massacre under the strict. We have to be careful with our language, even if others are not.
Yes.
Genocide is a very deliberate attempt to wipe out a culture or a people. And I'm not going to say that the mullahs in Iran, even if they've massacred 50,000 people, are trying to wipe out a culture or a people. But it is a mass slaughter, an indiscriminate mass slaughter of dissent. And stick that up your human rights campaign, please.
Yes.
You performative bleeps.
Yes.
So
where's Susan Sarandon? Where are all these? Where's George Clooney? Where's Amal Clooney? By the way, where are any of these people? But let's leave the last words of that, to Hillel Neurer, who is just, I mean, it's really powerful. It's a really powerful speech. It's very short, but I thought we would end with that. We will have all the news from the Kennedy Center next week with footage. We're very excited, very nervous. Keep us in your thoughts.
Okay, all the best, and see you next week. Bye.
Thank you very much. I now recognize United Nations Watch.
Mr. President, doctors in Iran estimate 20,000 protesters killed and 330,000 injured. These are numbers that defy comprehension. These are crimes against humanity. So today's session is welcome, but let's be honest, it is too little and too late. The Iranian people have a right to know why for over 3 weeks did this council say nothing. We asked the 87 UN rights experts, the world's early warning mechanism, for over 2 weeks, why were you silent? Only on January 13th was there a statement, and out of 87 experts, only 5 of you signed it. Day after day, we pleaded for action. 5 days into the repression, after killings of protesters, I asked Agnes Callamard, the former UN rapporteur who now heads Amnesty International, why are you silent? In January 2020, when the U.S. eliminated IRGC terror chief Qasem Soleimani, she rushed within hours to condemn it. Why no urgency when innocent Iranian protesters are massacred? And beyond this room, we ask the media, Hollywood celebrities, campus protesters, those who know how to mobilize world opinion, why are you silent? The answer is uncomfortable but clear. The Iran protest movement shatters a cherished narrative. A people rising against Islamist tyranny does not fit the ideology, and so it is ignored. To all of you, we say the cost of your silence was Iranian lives. It is time to choose. Do everything to protect the people of Iran or your failed worldview. History is watching.